So I had no idea the Paige Bueckers Caitlin Clark video I did would get the response that it did. I appreciate the passion, but I thought it was worth actually responding to some of the comments. Maybe I'm doubling down on the disdain, but it's worth always, I think, hearing what the audience has to say. Here are a smattering of what was written. BMA 0522. I was with you until you said it did not bother you, but you understand those who are upset. Not sure how this doesn't bother anyone who believes in being fair and balanced. Happy Paige got the recognition and presentation she earned. Immediately bothered and upset by the way Cece was treated last year in comparison. Look, what happened to Caitlin Clark last year is one of the wildest stories in the history of sports. That she wasn't just fully embraced, that there was a level of resentment, that somebody was campaigning for the whole league to be on the cover, that her last name became And Angel Reese, that she wasn't on the Olympic team in an all-time facepalm moment, that she wasn't protected by the officiating, that is, even up until this year, which I had spoke out about after the Mabry hit. I mean, there's just so many different things we could go back, but what does that do for right now? That means Paige Bueckers shouldn't get her proper recognition because of what happened last season? Let's go to another one. Here's what this comment had to say. Ramon Salas 1225 definitely lost some respect for you. You just wax on about Paige and her 44 points and all, and no mention of her whining to the refs, the red carpet treatment, while Caitlin had full court press, got double and triple team as well as beat the hell out of, completely disrespected by the league, refs, and players. Now you, by continuing to report as if the emperor is indeed wearing clothes, you, sir, are complicit in the mishandling and the best thing that to happen in sports in decades. Sad. Caitlin Clark is a phenomenon unlike anything I've ever seen. And I've tried to cover it as honestly and thoughtfully as I possibly can. But having nice things to say about Paige Bueckers is not having unnice things to say about Caitlin Clark, who I believe is better than Paige Bueckers and who is wildly more popular than Paige Bueckers. Clark was a disruptor in the sense she was so much more popular than everybody else. That's what led to some of that resentment. It was all about Caitlin Clark. I just said she was the sun that the rest of the WNBA universe orbits around. I don't know how else to interpret that. But that doesn't mean Paige Bueckers isn't damn good and wasn't deserving of the Rookie of the Year award. No, I don't think their reception was the same. Paige has been treated like a princess since she came in. No, I don't think they were guarded the same or some of these other things to the same degree. Because, Caitlin put everything at a higher level of attention. There's this. Let me get another comment. How about from Debbie here? Debbie, if you look at this and think it is okay, you are part of the problem and knee deep in WNBA corruption. The whole world should see the difference. I no longer respect you at all. You probably voted for her. You would have been better off keeping your mouth shut. You just made it 100 times worse. I hope Caitlin leaves this trash league. Think if Caitlin was your daughter because she is somebody's daughter and they're great people watching their daughter go through hell. I got to say that's a little extra. I would have voted for Paige, yeah. I feel for, anybody in Caitlin's orbit because she sometimes wasn't treated like a human being or a basketball player and, became an economy in and of herself and proved that the WNBA wasn't ready for primetime last year. It proved it. They didn't know how to handle it. But a year later, you don't want to compound mistakes. And I think that the shame of it is that Caitlin didn't get to come back and have her MVP and revenge tour or her proper year-long celebration and all that. This is why she had the towel on her head, the tears welling up in her eyes at All-Star, because she didn't get to have that moment in Indianapolis. And some of the comments that I do see, I think it's, a factor of the rage baiting that's constantly done about this topic all the time. Because all I tried to do was give a sober analysis of it. Because I think there's a lot of frustration because Caitlin been hurt and hasn't been able to play and hasn't been able to have her moments or get her proper shine. And she's still the topic of conversation, which kind of says it all. How about these? Skip the F and BS, dude. Be honest with yourself. Robin, you can try to sugarcoat this BS all you want. It still stinks. Kathy Engelbert is an embarrassment to the fans and the league. Robin, give me a break. Look, Kathy Engelbert, if all the credit goes to Caitlin Clark, what has she done as the commissioner? Right? And I don't think the WNBA thought Caitlin Clark's popularity was going to hold the way that it did. Maybe they thought it was going to be a flash in the pan for whatever reason. Because, a couple things, like when I talk to people about what I'm covering, one of the first things is, how could the WNBA mess up with Caitlin Clark? It's insane, which correct. Check mark. Ding. I mean, that was insane. Her rookie year, one of the wildest stories anyone has ever covered. The other is like, I quizzed people last night. What were the two most, because they were talking about the, I guess the Steph documentary on Netflix, Steph Curry, about the Paris Olympics. And I asked them what the two most watched basketball games this century are. One of them is that game, USA and France, and nobody could guess. I said Iowa and South Carolina. Ching! That popular. I don't think even the league thought Clark's impact was going to be what it was, and it was going to hold to that degree. Now, I also did play basketball wearing a Caitlin Clark WNBA All-Star jersey, and the coach on the sideline said, "Watch out, somebody's going to blindside you." So it's not as if that, hasn't crossed over. In fact, it is the topic of the WNBA when you talk to just casual fans. But running with a pitchfork a year later because Paige Bueckers is properly recognized, I don't know. I just can't do the same song and dance forever. Caitlin Clark has so many different fans from so many different walks of life and a lot of passion behind it, which is awesome. It's awesome. And it's part of the shame of what's missing from the postseason right now. But, if the league can grow from it, other players are going to get shine. They are going to get honored. They are going to get celebrated. And in contrast to Caitlin Clark, I just don't think Caitlin Clark being awarded on the Jennifer Hudson show is even really what she's looking for. I mean, looking back, it all looks bad, of course. But looking forward, who does it help to continue to use that to fuel further angst and anger? I don't know. I just guess I didn't see so many people seeing red over that.